Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Tonight, we'd like to continue with the debate on the issue of South Africa election results of 29th of May failed to give the ruling party, ANC, the majority. So the party has had to resort to joining other smaller parties to form a coalition if they're going to be the government. And the big issue now is which of the parties should they form a coalition with. On the one hand, you've got the Democratic Alliance, and on the other, you've got former President Jacob Zuma's MK and Julius Malema's led EFF. And tonight we'd like to focus on what Jacob Zuma himself is saying. Clearly, he thinks he should be in the frame. And we'll just play a quick video of that, and then we can comment on it.
They've been sitting saying how corrupt this man is, but they've never produced a single evidence to that. It was a way of just saying you don't like this Zuma. But unfortunately, I'm a son of the struggle, served under many presidents. I served for the first time at my young age to President of Albert Lutuli, Oliver Tambo, and finally Mandela. I'm a son of these great leaders who taught me how to fight, how to respect, how to stand for the truth. Part of what has happened in the recent past, the organization that I served for many years was led by people who were no longer carrying out policies and everything that the ANC stood for. And I failed even when I tried to intervene. And it was the reason of this that I decided, therefore, to establish Umkhonto weSizwe Party in order to do what I thought I was in this world for, to free our people, to make them have a better life than ever before. But it has been at this time that, again, I was tackled by the legal people in a democratic South Africa, as I was in an apartheid South Africa. I have had both. I went to prison without any trial. It has never been done, even to those who are said to be the worst criminals in the world. I decided that as long as I am around and fit and thinking, I have to make a contribution to take this country to where we wanted it to be, a proper, free South Africa. I wanted to change South Africa to make the Black people in particular free in a true sense of the word. That is the reason why I established the party. And I want this party to be the party that would be appreciated by everybody in South Africa, black and white. I want peace, I want equality, I want freedom. I want this country to be a country that serves its people, its citizens. Judges that have judged me, they've judged me in the past in a wrong way as well, by saying I must go to jail without having a trial. What type of democracy is that one?
Well, Ben, what do you say to that one?
Good day to everybody. I'm shocked. I'm lost for words. I mean, we all know how his presidency ended and how it was, how it was being run. I mean, the evidence is galore. I do not see why he is making such excuses for his failed presidency.
What I find amusing there is that here is an individual. Yeah. The record speaks for itself. South Africa is, many people would say South Africa is on the way to become just another failed state. It hasn't got there yet. The economy is tankered. The last 30 years, South Africa's economy has not performed well. And somehow he's brushing all that aside as if it never existed. It never, it's not there. It's not true. It's not even acknowledging that South Africa under ANC, the various ANC administrations had failed to meet the people of South Africa's aspirations. And I'm not surprised at all that he has been very quick to go back to his liberation credentials. This we have seen in Zanu PF. Zanu PF has justified their rule by insisting that they fought in the liberation war, and therefore then they have the right, the divine right to rule the country. I think one of the things that I've said to myself many times is that if South Africa had swapped Zuma for Nelson Mandela, I think South Africa would have never be a democratic country. He would have never allowed South Africa to become a democratic country at all. He fought in the liberation war, and like Mugabe and Mnangagwa, firmly believe that as somebody who risked their lives to fight in the war, they have the right to rule the country. I think this comes through. That is what I find so shocking about him. He doesn't even acknowledge that he was part of the failure of the ANC.
I mean, here we are, we have somebody that led a country through, some of the most trying and testing times. And, until South Africa gave up on him because he was basically selling the whole country, unless he is now saying that he's now, pushing away everything democratic about South Africa and saying all the institutions are captured, which now then dents, democracy in South Africa as a whole, as a totality. Just because he wants to preserve his own selfish needs and selfish desires. I think that is very unfair, and it's not the first time we've heard this. They are friends. Everybody in ANC, he was in ANC as far as I'm concerned, are just exactly like Zanu PF. Whenever they make a mistake, their defense is, we will never allow our countries to be a colony. We will do this for our people. For the past, South Africa has been 30 years. Zimbabwe has been 44 years. What have you done that you always say we will do? Absolutely nothing. All right? That's why they firmly believe they are related, they are sisters, sister party. And South Africa, at least some of their policies are not as drastic as Zanu PF, but they're all, I believe South Africa, the more it associates with Zanu PF, is picking up all the bad, habits from within Zanu PF to preserve itself. And you are right to say they are heading in the same direction if they do not, stop and see the mess that they are creating, along the along the way. But I mean, in a good thing, out of this whole bad thing came a positive thing to say, he was one, just like, I mean, there's so many similarities, if I may just add. What is happening in ANC is exactly happening in Zanu PF. Zuma is the Kasukuwere guy. Unfortunately, ours there's no democracy where Kasukuwere, was stopped. But he would have done exactly like what Zuma has done. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that here is an individual who still believes that he has got the right to be in power, and he is even justifying that he has never been corrupt. I mean, if you are, of all the South African leaders post in the apartheid, Zuma is definitely one where the track record speaks for itself. That he was corrupt and he was incompetent. And yet, here he comes out and say, I wasn't corrupt. And the only thing that he's referring to, I was sent to jail without being tried. That's when you begin to really say, here is an individual who lives in his own world. The main reason why he was jailed is because he had been asked by a court of law to do A, B, C, D, and he refused to do it. And the treatment he got is nothing compared to what apartheid was doing to the blacks during the apartheid rule. But to emphasize his position, he's prepared to flip over and pretend that the treatment he got was worse than what apartheid regime was doing to blacks. The whole thing is becoming totally meaningless. I mean, the interesting thing here is, let's not forget, this is all about ANC. Who should ANC go into the coalition with? The number one issue is ANC has failed to deliver on the economic front. South Africa's economy for the last 30 years has not performed to its full potential. When you have got a country like that, and you have got load shedding, you say to yourself, wait a minute. How did you come to that? And then you find for the last 30 years, ANC had not invested in any generation capacity. Why? That's poor planning, surely. The country has paid dearly because of those load shedding. And the way some of the state institutions have been run, the gross mismanagement, the corruption, I mean, it's well documented. And for somebody to come out and say, no, I never did anything wrong, that's when you begin to realize here is an individual who really lives in his own world. And it is tragic that many people have believed him. That is one of the tragedies of Africa.
And if I may add, the difference between ZANU PF and ANC over the past, let's just say post-independence, is that the ANC has not developed anything, but they have maintained. ZANU PF have not developed anything, and they have not maintained. That is just the difference. But in terms of developing their country, I think both these these liberation movements have have actually haven't done much in terms of prosperity for their people. They haven't done anything for the term good governance. So and he's part of the system. The part where I find that is very annoying about this whole speech is he wipes his whole presidency slate clean. Look, you were the top of, you were the head of the household by being the president. Whatever happens, below you, the buck stops with you. So you can't then, blame your lieutenants when you are right at the top and you say, I had nothing to do. No, no, no. You are the one that invited them to those posts. You are the one that walked with them. We saw you through, we saw you first before we even looked at whoever, the ministers and the whole, Congress is. So I don't think, he should be allowed to get away with it. Just like how we would not, like how Zimbabwe actually did when they let Mnangagwa get away with whatever, he had done before because Mugabe was at the top. I believe they're just the same, and they should be all accountable at the end of the day.
Well, I think in the case of Jacob Zuma, the fact that he was able to stage a comeback, his party, MK, was launched no more than 6 months ago, and it has gone on to win about 15% of the votes in South Africa. And in KwaZulu-Natal, it is the biggest party in that province. And therefore then, yes, they've successfully staged a comeback. But I think what one has got to ask there is what the electorate were thinking. Do they really believe that Jacob Zuma did nothing wrong? Because one of the problems that undermines democracy is that the electorate themselves, if they're not educated and well informed, they'll make the wrong decision. And giving somebody like Jacob Zuma the voice and the platform is not helping the country at all. It's just dragging it backwards. We can't have somebody who has got a proven track record of being corrupt and incompetent somehow airbrush all that and deny that he didn't do anything wrong. And people immediately believe him. Because by voting for him and giving him the platform, you've undermined democracy. The whole point of holding people to democratic account is that you should be able to say, no, you have failed, and let's get somebody else. The worst they could have done in his case would have been to say no. Yes, as much as we would want to punish ANC for failing to deliver, we want MK to be led by other people. It cannot be led by people like Zuma, whom we already know their track record. Just because he's now speaking against the ANC, which we are ourselves as individuals are disappointed with, does not make him good. And I think that is a quantum leap. Because now, if ANC was to make the decision to go into the coalition with him and EF, Personally, I don't see that country changing direction at all. The problem that has dragged South Africa to the point of becoming just another failed African state will continue. Jacob Zuma is not going to offer anything to stop corruption and mismanagement. He claims that was what he was offering. I mean, you have to be really incredibly naive to believe the Gupta corruption, for instance, was in the interest of the country. So I think this is one of the problems when you've got democracy and then the electorate themselves are not well informed and educated to make the right decision. And if they're voting for him out of ignorance, that is undermining democracy. That is a serious problem.
Well, in conclusion, I would say, there are lessons to be learned from both, from both countries. I would like to draw, similarities in these cases, both Zimbabwe and South Africa. South Africa are at an advantage where it's still the early signs of, of the symptoms. Yet Zimbabwe, it is already, deep rooted in it, but we can still get out of it. Here is a situation where we can see, just like the Second Republic, that says it wasn't involved, it cleaned its slate, when it was Mugabe's era, but everybody we know was in there. Just the same, Jacob Zuma has cleaned his slate and has blamed it on the next person. As Africans, we are in this habit of pushing the buck to the next guy, and wipe our slates clean. I think some of these people or some of these events need for us to stop a minute and question, to say, but okay, you were the authority of this of this movement. Why did you not say something at that time? You witnessed it and you kept quiet. That way you are also part and parcel of the problem. So I see similarities, and I see similarities in the ANC and Zanu PF, where they are still saying up to today, 44 years and 30 years after independence, that we will never be a colony. I do not think anybody wants to colonize anyone anymore, but it's just about making the right decisions. When somebody asks you a question, they do not hate. They just want you to be accountable because it's a public office. You owe the people that much. And now, for lastly, I would say, again, we are finding similarities within the people, the general people, the citizens of the countries, between Zimbabwe and South Africa. If we continue to be naive, they will come up a lot of Zumas, they will come up a lot of Mnangagwas that will wipe their slates clean until we probably, with Zimbabwe, will have the 10th Republic and will never be associated with the past 9. But they were there together, eating and dining, So we have to stop this rot now. South Africa has an advantage. It can stop the rot before it even grows. Zimbabwe, it has grown, but it can still stop that rot. That's what I have to say in conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. My last remark is that if we still have to to see how this story in South Africa unfolds. But if ANC was to make the wrong decision and form a coalition with MK or EFF, in my view, they will have decided that it will be business as usual. We will not see any significant change or improvement in the economic performance of South Africa the next 5 years, because nothing would have changed. Whereas a coalition with the Democratic Alliance, I think the Democratic Alliance will bring in two key points: good management, and they will stamp out corruption. ANC leaders themselves would know, if they were to be corrupt, the DA partners will want accountability. And that is a very important restraint, particularly when you think that ANC leaders have been incredibly corrupt. I don't see Zuma doing something like that. I don't see Malema doing anything like that. Those two will be actually conniving with ANC leaders as long as they get their share of the looting, just as they got their share of the looting when they were in the ANC, which is why ANC is in South Africa is in the present economic situation. So we'll have to wait and see how this whole debate of coalition unfolds. But personally, like I said, I honestly think a coalition between ANC and DA will be what South Africa would need right now, because that will change the country's direction for the better. Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you very much to the listeners for joining us tonight, and have a good night.